Okay, we are recording. This is David P. France. I'm coming to you from Basel, Switzerland. And before we start, I want you to remember to like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, DavidPFranceTV. Today, I am speaking with Patrick Barnitt. Pat is an actor, singer, performer, and you've also done some producing and such things as that a little bit, right? And Pat's coming to us from Los Angeles. And the thing that's interesting is that I've known Pat, or I first met Pat about 30 years ago, or some 30 plus probably.
Right.
In South Orange, New Jersey. And we were in middle school together. He was there briefly, I can say that, right? And then you transferred, or you moved to another school, right? I think it was Seton Hall Prep. You went to Seton Hall Prep.
Right. So I was in SOJH with you. I was with you and everybody else for two years.
For 2 years?
I was there. I was 7th and 8th grade, and everybody went to Columbia. All you guys went to Columbia.
Right.
I went to Seton Hall Prep.
He went to Seton Hall Prep, right? So for me, I mean, I didn't travel a lot in South Orange. So, you know, when you went to Seton Hall Prep, that's probably the last time I saw you.
I think, well, man, I think you're right about that. I think it's so funny because I kept in touch with a lot of, I don't think I saw you much in high school at all.
Mm-mm.
And I kept in touch with a number of our mutual friends in Columbia.
Right.
But yeah, so it was kind of wild to kind of go to the prep school and have your friends go to the local public school. Actually, Columbia was right down the street from where I grew up on Richmond Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
So it was actually a lot closer than Seton Hall was. But
right.
Yeah, it was a great time.
Right, and for you guys that don't know what we're talking about, this is a town, South Orange and Maplewood had a joint, two small townships in northern New Jersey, about 40 minutes outside of New York City. I had moved there from Baltimore and attended middle school from 7th and 8th grade, as you stated. Yeah. And this particular town is a very special town. I've talked to other people about it. Very unique, very much focused on sports, the arts for young people in high school. And there was a certain vibe, like a small town vibe, and everybody knew one another, right? So I saw Pat when the Facebook craze started to happen and people were reconnecting in that way. I saw you, and that's how I connected with you.
Yeah, we connected. I mean, I think we connected, like you said at the top. I mean, it's been so many years, but yeah, I mean, the Facebook, what a great tool to keep keep everybody in touch, and especially so many people from that time of our lives, going back to grammar school. I mean, there's so many friends of mine on there from Clinton School. When did you move? Did you move to South Orange right before middle school, or? Right.
So I did my 6th grade in out in the outskirts, Baltimore County, actually Howard County in Maryland. And then my father got a job in northern New Jersey and we moved to South Orange. So 7th grade.
I was trying to figure that out because I was telling a friend of mine about our talk today. Yeah. And I was telling Mom, and I was like, I'm trying to remember where David went to grammar school because a lot of the kids in South SOJH, which has become South Orange Middle School now.
Right.
But a lot of the kids, you could actually remember, they were South Mountain kids, or they were Clinton School, or all the kids in junior high were from one of the grammar schools locally. So I was trying to place you.
No, I wasn't there.
I'm trying to figure out what school he went to.
I would have gone to South Mountain, right? So my younger sister attended South Mountain.
Okay. I think that's the school that I told her, but in any event, that's
I would have attended South Mountain.
Right?
It's very interesting.
I'm learning these things. I'm learning. Baltimore. We love Baltimore.
Yeah. I mean, look, back then it was a shock to the system, right? I mean, for me, it was a big jump. But I'm glad that my family moved. I mean, it allowed me to see things, particularly what we're about to talk about now, is sort of the acting or the art
Sure.
scene
Yeah.
out of New York City. I mean, it was very strong during that time, if
Right.
you remember. So I would
Yeah.
talk to people about how when we watched television, Broadway commercials would come on, and they were really well produced Broadway commercials, right? I mean,
Yeah.
these were
Super. Yeah.
fantastic, right?
I
And it was
remember,
a certain
seeing
era.
that. There's
Hmm?
one on that note. I was just talking about this, having dinner with a friend of mine the other night. I was talking about that that classic commercial for the Broadway show Gemini, which had Danny Aiello, and it was in the sort of mid late '70s. But I remember that was like that was a big commercial for that big
Yeah.
Broadway show at that time.
Yeah, it was a strong community, and I think had I not had that experience, I would not have made some of the decisions that that have brought me to the place now, right? I mean, I was
Yeah.
immersed in it. It wasn't seen as it was a normal path.
Yeah.
It was a possibility, right? That's how I'd say
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You
It
know,
really was.
yeah. So look, tell us, you've been in Los Angeles for quite some
Yeah.
time. I mean, you moved out there, right? I mean, I think what, 30 some odd years ago.
Yeah, I moved exactly. I mean, I moved. I think I'm trying to think. Let's see. Yeah, it'll be 30 years this upcoming February.
Uh,
So just, yeah, 3 decades pretty much. Yeah.
right. And when did you
Right.
know that you wanted to, become an actor?
Well, the funny thing, I mean, you just touched upon it about, the area in which we grew up in. I mean, um, it was such a creative. I mean, so many kids were so gifted, just in terms of whether it be dance or music or and just growing up in that area, Maplewood, South Orange, and just surrounded by so many kids that were doing music and playing music and creative kids. So I think that was, I was in a band. I was in a band with a bunch of kids from Clinton School and then Seton Hall. Greg Sweeney, I'm sure you know Gregory Sweeney, is my best buddy, and Dave Glashinsky, David Glosh. So we were in a band. Well, actually, those guys were in a band, and then I was in a band with Greg, and I don't know. I mean, I think I had done a play. This is kind of wild. I did. I was in sixth grade. I was in Hansel and Gretel,
Mhm.
which is nuts. I played Hansel
Yeah.
at Clinton School. So that was the first sort of. I guess that was the first play that I was ever involved in. But yeah, I mean, I think it was. I went to college. I went to the University of Scranton in Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
And which is the home of The Office, the TV show The Office. And so I went to Scranton, and but actually earlier than that, like right around grammar school, I'm sure you probably remember Jeff Roth. Remember Jeff Roth?
Jeff Roth, no, I don't know. I don't remember
Anyway,
him.
Jeff and Lisa Roth, they were a couple of years ahead of
I
us.
think Lisa Roth, I remember.
Right. And Jeff had an agent in Manhattan.
Okay.
Yeah, so a very strange kind of occurrence. I mean, I just kind of cascade of events, but he was on vacation. He had booked some sort of a commercial, Jeff had, and my mom had my mom ended up being the emergency contact for the agent that was booking him on this thing.
Yeah.
So my brother, subsequently my brother Chris and I, who is a couple years younger than me, Chris and I had Jeff's same agent for a little while. So when we were young, so basically, like, maybe, I don't know, when we were sort of 10 or 11, thereabouts, right before Seton Hall, we had an agent. So I was for about a year and a half, I was in and out of Manhattan for auditions.
So you had
So I kind of whetted my appetite for Manhattan and things like that. So, and what with, all the stuff with all the musical stuff that we were doing with the band at the time, and just being really interested in music. So that kind of introduced me to the business in a way, you know. So I think when I got out of college, it was sort of like, well, it would make sense that I would go to New York or would go to LA.
Sure.
But so that
And it
was.
would you say it was happening, that kind of thing was not unusual back then? Because there were, the way that I saw it, it was that the acting world and the entertainment world in New York was fairly strong then. So
Yeah.
to have an agent or to go into the city to check out what was going on was quite normal for us.
Yeah. It was
Right.
100%, and it was also you know, I was like 10 years old, 11 years old, so it was educational. You know, I think I'd like booked one. I booked one print ad for Montgomery Ward,
Right.
in like 1977 or something. But in any event, more than that, it was just the experience of going to Manhattan and going on an audition and meeting all these different creative people. So that was early on, and then I went out to University of Scranton in Pennsylvania, and I got very into it there. I got really into acting, and I was playing music, you know, playing piano and stuff and singing a bit. But I auditioned for a play my sophomore year, and a musical, and I got cast in this Sondheim musical called Merrily We Roll Along.
Yeah.
And so I just started. It seemed right. It seemed. I'd always had an interest from a young age, and it seemed like it was starting to happen. It seemed like I was doing more and more plays, and I met at an awesome group of friends out there in Scranton.
Yeah.
Great community, another great sort of artsy community out there. So yeah, so I started doing plays, but actually prior to that, I was a DJ. It was actually when I first went to Scranton my freshman year. Before I ever wanted to be an actor, I wanted to be like Warner Wolf. I wanted to be like a sports guy.
Okay, yeah. Oh, you really going back. I know that guy.
Yeah, I remember Warner Wolf, right? Who doesn't remember Warner Wolf?
Yeah, I remember that guy. Yeah, of course. He was legendary.
Right. So I was into sports, and I was into music and all, like so many kids, right?
So many others.
And yeah, so many of us back then. So I thought, like, I wanted to be like a news guy. That's kind of where I thought I would end up. And so when I got to Scranton, I thought, and plus, like with all the legendary radio stations of the day in the 70s, you had WNEW, you had WPLJ,
sure,
and all. You know, we were listening to radio so much. So when I got to Scranton, I joined the radio station, WYRE, and I was a freshman, and I got a show on WYRE as a disc jockey.
Okay.
And it was really difficult because most of those classic tunes are like 2 to 3 minutes, and everything was done with a turntable. So you had to cue all the records up, and you had to get all your PSAs lined up. So you really had very little time to get everything done. So it was. But
I can see when you talked about Warner Wolf, like when you said it, then it became super clear to me all of a sudden in my head, right? Because I could totally see that picture in terms of the image that you're presenting now, right?
Yeah.
And even your voice, right? The whole thing I can see, right? I can see it very clear. Now, maybe to give people that weren't in that area a little more or better an idea of what it was like. There wasn't internet, of course, right? Yeah. And the radio was a really huge influence as well, right? Music was a huge influence.
Yeah.
And we would, I mean, just to tell you what we would do, we couldn't wait to get out of middle school to go home and listen to the radio. Right. Yeah. And during the summertime, that's all you did. I mean, like, you'd have the radio on. And so the songs had super significant impact or influence. Right. And it would make sense, you know, you've talked about before, like why, like even going through that era, why it seemed to be an option to go for something like this, right? To say, okay, I'm going to become Warner. I'm going to go and do theater. I'm going to go and do the DJ thing, right? So these were, you know, options, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. I think, yeah, because there was so much, you know, radio is so big, and the world was set up in such a way, or not set up in such a way yet, with
Right.
the internet, and all that's available because of that. You know, it was limited. You know, you had a couple of stations on TV, you had 247 and Channel 13, and then you had radio, and you know, you had no internet, so you couldn't, you know, check out YouTube or your favorite bands. You didn't have any of that, so it was simple in a way, but you know, and also with the proximity to Manhattan being so close, you know, living in South Orange, so it wasn't that far away. I mean, New York City. I mean, you know, you might go there for a day trip, you might go see a Broadway show, and then, you know, when my brother and I were kind of in there for a short bit of time auditioning, just kind of being exposed to it, it kind of seemed accessible in a way. I also had an uncle who was an actor in Manhattan, New York City, who was a huge influence on me, who was an actor and a director, and he actually he started his career professionally as a film actor when he was 60.
Oh, wow.
An interesting story. So he was an attorney, my dad's brother, Roy Barnitt, and he was yeah. So you know, he'd come by the house when we were kids, and I had another uncle who was his mentor, who was a gentleman named Roy Irving, who was much older than he was, who was kind of the age of my grandparents. And you know, Roy Irving had been in the Abbey Theater with James Mason, so he was a contemporary of James Mason's.
Sure, sure.
And so, you know, when I was a little kid, I mean, you know, living where we lived, right, close to Manhattan, and having all those experiences of going in as a young kid, and you know, having an uncle who was in the arts, and then sort of, you know, another uncle who was old enough to be my, you know, grandfather. He was, you know, he would tell stories about, you know, doing theater in London or Dublin, or working. He was in a big film with. There's a film that James Mason did, I think, in I want to say maybe 39. I think it was 39. I could be wrong, but it's called The Odd Man Out. Called The Odd Man Out with James Mason. So he was in that. So I had an uncle who, you know, I would hear stories about theater and movies and James Mason and all of his sort of tales as a kid. So for me, it was, you know, I was inspired by my uncle Roy. He's a huge influence on me, and also my uncle Roy Irving. So, you know, it's kind of cool. They come by the house when we were kids, and so these are some of my experiences, you know, when we come by.
I have a question about because we've also informed everyone that you also know how to sing. Now I'm gonna touch on this a bit, and then we're gonna go into what was like when you were in LA and move through auditions and things like this. But when I heard you sing for the first time, it was via Facebook, I think, via social media, and I was shocked. Not like, oh, I can't believe that guy can sing. Not in that way, but I was shocked because the quality of your voice is very, very high, right? So the question I have for you is, at what point when you were younger?
By the way, first of all,
did you know?
Let me just interject. Thank you very much, number one.
Yeah, well, you know.
That's very, very nice of you to say. Thank you.
Well, I mean, but it's the truth, right? So, and we'll get to it. You know, we're going to come back to it. But at what point did you know, hey, look, I have a good voice. I have a great voice. I mean, because I'm asking you the question because as I was developing, there were certain things that I knew how to do, but it took a long time for me to understand that only I could do it.
Okay.
Right. So I made the assumption.
So in other words, there were certain sort of physical things as a dancer.
As someone
that you would try and think, okay, I got this.
Right, but I wasn't able to make the leap to the next level until much, much, much later, because there were other things that were tugging or making themselves present to me, which I had to either experiment or try out or resolve. And dance was not at the top of the list, right? So for a lot of dancers, it's the thing that they want to do and nothing else.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
my issue is that I wanted to do a whole bunch of different things, right?
Yeah.
So
You had a lot of it.
I set upon doing that,
Yeah.
but I knew that I could dance, but it did not trigger me in a
Yeah.
way to say, hey, I'm great, you know? But at some point, I did come to the conclusion very,
Right.
very late, hey, Dave, you know what you're doing, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, for you in terms of singing, my question is, did you know at a very early age that you could sing well? And also, you know, because your voice now sounds much, much deeper than when I knew you back then. I don't remember how it sounded then, but it did not sound like this.
I'm glad it's deeper.
Right. It didn't sound like this, right? So, you know,
Right.
there's a point in time with, particularly with a guy, when the voice changes and you're
Yeah.
trying to experiment with
Right.
how you sound, right? And
Sure.
so my question is, did you know, or when did you know
Yeah.
that you had singing chops?
Well, actually, you know, it's a great question. You know, you mentioned like my voice being high, you know, because we
I
knew
don't
each other
remember.
when we were kids. I mean,
I don't remember.
100 years ago. But the crazy thing is, I was on the Maplewood Packers. I was
Uh-huh.
on the, you know, Pop Warner team, and I remember I was the quarterback for
Uh-huh.
whatever grade that was, 6th or 7th grade, and I was the quarterback, and you know, it was at the time where your voice is changing. So it was like I was making the calls. I was like 34,
Uh-huh.
26. You know, I was doing the calls. I think did I just destroy my life? We're good.
No, you're good. You're
All
good.
right. So and it was kind of funny. My brothers kind of used to tease me because I would be like 25, 36, and my voice would crack. And anyway, um, little aside there. But you know, my grandfather was a singer.
Uh-huh.
My grandfather, my dad's dad was he was a real singer. He played so when I was a kid, he also played the ukulele as well. So you know, when we were kids, he would sing to us, and he had a really beautiful, like Bing Crosby-esque kind of baritone voice. And he'd play
Uh-huh.
songs like, you know, Bye Bye Blue and Me and My Shadow and Won't You Come Home, Bill Bailey, which I just
You
recorded on my
recorded
new
it, yeah.
album as a tribute to him, which is one of the first songs I remember as a kid. You know, I did. It's bizarre. I mean, I don't even know. I just think that it was one of those things that I was always singing. Right, my brothers were really into music, and my brother Dave was a clarinet player. He was a pretty good, you know, good musician. He played in the band at Seton Hall, and musical guy. And I was surrounded by so many kids, you know, so many of our friends who could sing, and also great drummers and guitar players and piano players. And honestly, I was like, I played a little bass and I played saxophone, so I was okay. But there were so many kids that were really great musicians. So I did Hansel and Gretel like since 6th grade, and so I kind of knew then. I felt like it was something I could do at a young age, and it was one of those things. I don't know. It's a really good question. I think maybe it might have been then, but I think as time went on and I got involved in a band, we were in a band called Entropy. Greg Sweeney and I, Lou DiGiovanni, Lou, Romeo and Iso too, and another guy from Columbia, Joel Primer, who's a guitar player. And so we were in this band called Entropy, and then it was one of those things that I started getting more into jazz a bit. I was in a rock and roll, and I was singing rock, but
you were singing. You were singing as the lead. Were you the lead vocalist for the band?
I was. Yeah. We were like when we were like 15.
Okay.
16.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they had another band that I wasn't in, but
okay.
Yeah, I was singing. I was singing the lead. I was the lead vocalist. You know, singing like in the gymnasium, Immaculate Heart of Mary in Irvington. So I think I did that, and then when I went on to college, I did more. I was more into acting.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started listening to Harry Connick
Yeah,
Harry kind of broke in the late 80s. You know, that was
that's
his
right.
time. Kind of
Hmm.
blew up. And, but I was always a huge Bobby Darin fan. I was a huge, like, Bobby Darin was one of those kind of crossover figures for me.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you had rock and roll, but, he passed away. He was gone by sort of the early 70s. But I remember like seeing him on TV, and I remember, Sammy Davis Jr. on TV, and I remember Sinatra, but more than kind of any figure, I was kind of like, I was intrigued by Bobby Darin, and I sang at my brother's wedding in 1989, and I was there with family, and I wasn't planning on singing because I'd
Uh-huh.
done a bunch of musicals and stuff, and it was kind of that moment in my life. It was one of those moments that crystallized in an instant, where I sat in with the band, I sang Mac the Knife, and I was like, this feels right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It
I
was one
mean,
of those, like, I'm sure you can relate, right? Where everything, it's a moment that's crystal clear, where everything comes into full focus, and you realize, like, yeah, like, I love this. There's
mhm,
no
mhm.
feeling like this, and this is something that I could do. And then from then on, moving to LA, and I would kind of come back to music. I wasn't really, when I moved here, I wasn't really planning on. I really didn't have any designs to sing when I moved here. I just wanted to kind of be an actor, and then I kind of came back to music a few years later
Yeah.
here, and I've been doing them both for a while now. So
Let me ask you about the wedding, right? So
yeah,
so who asked you? Who asked you to sing? Did somebody say, "Hey, we want you to sing during the wedding," or how did that come to?
I'll have to find. It's funny. I'll have to find some of the video, because I was like, I had hair and I was like 150 pounds soaking wet.
Uh-huh,
But
uh-huh.
in any event, I just, what happened was, my cousin, rest her soul, she's gone now, but she 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 was she was an actress and a singer, so she wanted to sing a song, and she said, "Well, do you want to sing backup with me?" And I was like,
Uh,
I just, I didn't really, it wasn't my cup of tea, the song she picked. So I was like, you know what? I was like, listen, I don't want to mess it up.
mhm.
I feel like if I sing with you, I'm going to destroy your song. So you do your thing. So she sang, and then they said, hey, does anybody else want to sing a song? So literally, my brothers like grabbed me,
And pull you.
and they threw me up.
See,
They,
there it is. That's what I'm looking for, because
yeah,
this is what's clear. It's like
yeah,
you guys, and I'm going to ask you to sing toward the end of our, right, just something simple, because it was shocking. I mean, when I heard you on Facebook, it
yeah,
was shocking, because I knew you, and let me just give you a visual. I just remember us being, I don't know if we were in the same classes, but I just remember
yeah,
seeing you a lot in transition to the next class.
yeah,
Right. So I'd be going to one
right,
class, you'd be going to
yeah,
another
yeah,
class,
yeah,
and it was sort of like this. Right.
right,
So, my history there with you in terms of what you were able to do is very limited. And then you just were gone. Right. So, like, where'd that guy go? Oh, he went to Seton Hall. And that was the end. So when I heard, it was like, holy shit. I mean, excuse me, holy, this guy can really blow. He can sing.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. That's
Right.
very, thank you.
And then shortly thereafter, we started seeing on Facebook, on social
Sure.
media, the evolution of you going out and recording. So we started seeing the
Yeah,
story, unfold, which was pretty
right,
cool.
right.
Right. It was pretty cool.
Well,
Um,
thanks, man.
well,
Thanks. Well, listen, it's been great just to ping pong back to you. It's great to see what you're up to, and all the great performances you put on over in Europe, and to see your work, man. You just, you're killing it. You're killing it at 50,
52, 50.
53, 52, 53, right? Killing it.
Oh, well, look, there's always more, what do you call, mountains to conquer, or climb.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
And part of why I think I wanted to do this interview show
yeah,
is, my abilities to produce and bring elements of out of people, started in news when I worked. Well, in '88, the summer of '88, I worked as an intern at MTV, right? So
Oh, how
this was
cool,
in
man. How cool.
this was in the height, during the height. So I was trying to figure out how to get into New York and stay in New York. It didn't happen because I was trying to, graduate from college as well. And it got to the point where if I had stayed at MTV and deferred, I probably would have been on the path quicker.
Right.
But by going to college, it actually took me off the path, right? Because back then, it's like, when you're in show business, you just, whatever, when you get the gig, you just move with the gig.
Yeah,
Right?
100%.
And I didn't,
Right.
as a result of LA, right? When something starts to happen, you can't up and say, okay, now I want to go to college, or I want to, do something else, because there's a momentum.
Yeah.
So, part of what you're seeing now, at least in this crisis that we're having, is that I felt like I had to do something,
Right.
because of the people that I know who have all
Right.
this ability and talent. I'm like, well, we're all going to be stalled once again by a series of natural, semi-natural disasters and circumstances, right? And I said, there's a way that we can get around it. So this is,
Sure.
this format is what developed, and it's from the experiences that I had earlier,
It's cool about MTV though. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Oh, and let me just tell you,
Right when it was kind of happening,
let me tell you, when I worked there, I had I won't tell you the backstory, but I had to turn down an internship at a very prestigious internship that didn't pay. And it was at the White House. And so the next year, I was able to land something at MTV, and I said, there's no way I'm turning this one down, right?
Right.
And I figured out a way to
Nice.
get there and to live. And it paid a little bit. And from working there, I worked on 2 programs, MTV Europe. Well, I worked in the international department, and the woman said, well, your major is international relations, so we'll put you in the international department.
Right.
I was like, oh my God, this is like God's blessing. And there was MTV Europe, Japan, and Australia. So
Right.
we literally took programming and converted it to those different affiliates.
Sure.
And then MTV International for the Spanish or Latin market was started in, back then, Daisy Fuentes was one of the DJ or the VJs.
Nice.
So I was there when they auditioned her, and there was a guy, I think, who was from Colombia or Argentina or something like that. And they eventually got rid of him, and they kept her on, and she started to, become a big name.
Wow.
But that was what was going on back then.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
yeah, but it was super competitive, because once I left and I was trying to get back in, it was like the doors were already closed.
Yeah.
It was like, it wasn't that guy, oh, Dave, come on back, we want you. No, it didn't happen that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it did set me up for what was to come, which was like, I worked in TV later. And now, I can envision what you went through, partly, maybe not the auditions, but maybe the set, what goes on the set.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, speaking about MTV, at the prep, I went to high school with Bill Bellamy.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, sure.
Bellamy actually played basketball with him at Seton Hall.
Yeah.
It was bizarre because I had moved to LA, and then I turned on the TV, maybe like in 91 or 92 or 3, whenever he was on the show, and there's Billy.
Yeah, there he is.
It was wild. Anyway, he's a great guy, and he's had a hell of a career.
Yeah, and that was the start of his career, right? In terms of, that's how he broke.
No. Yeah, I think he was doing stand-up.
He was doing stand-up, right?
Stand-up in the area, and I think and then one day he was on TV. It was cool.
So tell us what's like when you moved out to LA.
Yeah.
Right, and sort of the first roles you started to get, or how you started to make.
Well, let me tell you about moving to LA and the first roles I didn't get.
Oh, okay.
Because that's it's funny because when I moved to LA, my best buddy Greg Sweeney, and anybody who's watching will remember Greg. Greg's has some family in LA who his cousin was kind of a big actress named Catherine Witt. But anyway, her significant other, Ray Abruzzo, he was on The Sopranos. He's one of the main characters in The Sopranos. So when I moved to LA, and I remember meeting him when I was in high school, because we took a trip out to LA when we were in high school. And I remember Ray said to me when I like probably like when I saw him like in 92 or 93, he's like, "Welcome to Hollywood, buddy." He goes, "What roles do you see yourself not getting?" which is kind of twisted, but kind of funny, but true at the same time. So when I moved to LA, I moved here in 91, just before the riots. So I moved here and the riots. It was a lot of. I've been through a lot here in LA. I mean, when I think about, you know, catastrophes and major sort of cultural events, but so I moved here and pretty. I guess within a month or two, I was in a play. I got cast in a play. I got cast in a Shakespeare play. I did Love's Labour's Lost. So that was encouraging. Because I just arrived here, and within a month I had gotten a part. Didn't pay anything, but it was a gig. It was it was like a non-equity kind of a gig. So I did that, and I made some friends, and I got a gig, a side hustle, working as a waiter at the Ritz-Carlton.
Sure.
So I worked there for about 3 or 4 years, and yeah, and actually, one of my first gigs in LA was I did voiceovers for Beverly Hills 90210. So I would do. They call it Walla, and the reason they call it Walla is anytime you see a scene in a TV show or a movie, and you see the principals sitting. Let's say you have two actors sitting, two people sitting in a diner. Any of the people around them, the background and all the sounds, they have conversations. So you do all the voiceovers for that, and then you mix it together. So it's sort of creating the sounds of people speaking around you. So I did that for probably 2 or 3 years, but that was exciting because that was my first kind of paid gig in LA, doing Walla / ADR. So that was cool because, some of the actors were around, so you'd see them like Jason Priestley and some of the other actors. And so that was the first gig. And then the first gig that I got on camera was Santa Barbara. I auditioned for Santa Barbara. I got an agent, and then I think it was 92. I had an under 5 on Santa Barbara.
What is an under 5? What is that?
Under 5 is 5 lines or less.
Okay.
5 lines or less. So, so that was in 1992, and that was it was. I mean, look, it was exciting. I mean, it was unbelievable because I got the call, and okay, you booked this under 5, and then they somehow added more because it was a part of. I played a ticket agent, like at the airport, at the gate, and this woman goes into labor. So I run up to her and I'm like, "Ma'am, are you okay? Can I help you? You need a glass of water?" So I did 2 days on that, and that was terrifying. It was terrifying because it was amazing. Like we shot it where they shoot the Tonight Show, or shot the Tonight Show. And over there at NBC. And so you get there, and you get to your dressing room, and you go to the set, and it's a quick scene. I mean, what I said took like less than a minute.
Yeah, but you were in the mix. You're in the mix of it, right?
100%. And it's so exciting, man. When I mean, just you're over the moon. Well, this is it, man. I'm like, here I am, and so. So I get to NBC, and I go to the dressing room. You have this beautiful dressing room, and so you go to rehearsal, and you say the lines, and and they're like, yeah, it sounds good, Patrick. Listen, that sounds great, but listen, whatever you do, just don't lean over her too much because you don't want to cast a shadow on her.
Right. Okay.
So then, but the problem was that like my scene was the very last scene of the day. So it was like, hurry up and wait, right? So you have your rehearsal, and you're going over your lines, and this is my first gig. So, I'm in front of the mirror and I'm like, saying my lines, and I'm like, and I've done it 1,000 times now, but I'm looking at my watch thinking like, when the hell is this going to be over? So finally we did it. And, and it was amazing. Like, it happens. I waited a whole day, and we got to like 7:50, and I'm like, at the end, I was like coming out of my skin. I'm like, are we going to do this thing? Is this actually going to happen? And, as it turns out, we did it, and it was over, and it was like the last part of the day. And they're like, okay, great. I did it once. And they said, great. We good? Okay, cool. Camera, great. Clean. Sound. Okay, cool. Thanks, everybody. Good night. Good night.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the lights on the soundstage went off. And it was, and I was kind of standing there going, is that it?
Yeah.
I literally, it was almost like it happened so quickly. And it was over, and everyone was gone and walking out the door. So anyway, so that was my first gig. So periodically through the years, I would do extra work, here, for a while, and be on a lot of sets. And, but that was like sort of my first big TV, not big, but, first it was a TV gig that, I got paid and I got credit, and I still get like maybe a 3-cent residual every 5 years.
So this is 92?
Yeah, this is 92. So I'm trying to think. Yeah,
1992.
So 1992. So subsequently, I worked on a number of things. I worked on Seven and Star Trek: First Contact, and I became sort of a regular soldier, background soldier on Deep Space Nine. And that was in like 95. And that was exciting because it was Star Trek, and I was a huge Star Trek fan as a kid. And so I did that. And then I got cast in First Contact, Star Trek First Contact. So that was a really thrilling and exciting time because, I loved Star Trek as a kid. And, when I was in college, they brought back The Next Generation.
Sure.
So I was working, I was working with Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
And, Jonathan Frakes and, LeVar Burton and Brent Spiner, and just the whole cast, Maria Sirtis and Gates McFadden. So that was a magical and surreal experience for me. And all these years later, I'm still pinching myself that I ever got to do it. But that was exciting. So that was 96. I worked on Seven the year before in 95, David Fincher.
Yeah, when we talked about that, now I'm going to ask you one question about the first time that you were, or the time you were on Santa Barbara. Was the fact that, you'd waited so long, and then there's a performance aspect, right? But in film, they film or tape, right? So they're just trying to get whatever they need on, on film or celluloid or whatever it is.
Right.
But from the actor's perspective, right, it's a whole nother thing going on in your head. So it may have been the first time you realize, oh, they got what they wanted, like from their eyes, right? Oh, we did it. Okay, let's go, right? But from your perspective, you could see maybe in a different way how you could have done it differently, how you could have walked on, or
No.
Were you in that space?
Completely, because we did it, literally did it. Maybe we did it maybe twice, but no more than twice. I mean, I recall doing it once. It was sort of like, I think we did it early to market in rehearsal, like 8 hours, 10 hours before. Then when we actually got ready to shoot, it was I think we did it once. I think we did it once. It was like, okay, action, and I just spit my lines out, and it was literally, if you don't knock the camera, if you don't knock the lights over, and you said your lines with some level of commitment, but I felt all those things when I finished it. I thought, well, God, I could have done it differently, or I could have tried it this way, or was it good enough? I remember thinking to myself, man, like, I guess it's okay because everyone's gone and everybody went home, and they said it was cool. They said it was a print. They said it was a wrap. So
They just
a
want
lot
to go
was all
home.
this. There was, what'd you say?
They just want to go home. At that point, they want to
No,
go
no, no,
home, right?
no, 100%, 100%.
Yeah.
But
But
yes,
you know,
all of
from
those
your
things,
perspective,
all of those things went through my head.
uh,
Massive insecurity, massive second guessing, and kind of this, thinking that it might be sort of creatively longer, like
mhm,
more fulfilling. It was massively exciting, and at that point, being so young, and I was brand new in town. I was like
um,
24, 25. It was huge for me, but and it's so exciting. But at the end of the day, I was like, God, maybe I should have tried it this way. And did I really, was I believable? So there were all these questions. But then like a couple months later it was on, or a month later it was on. It was like, I guess it was okay. It was okay.
mhm.
I said my lines, and and then they said, okay, cool, like it's a wrap. So
Well, there another thing comes to my mind, and I want to talk about your experience with the movie Seven,
yeah,
which
yeah,
had Morgan Freeman and Brad
yeah,
Pitt
yeah,
and Kevin Spacey, right?
sure, yeah,
Because on the again social media,
yeah,
just randomly one day happened to be scrolling, and then I see, uh, wait a minute, he's actually on the set of that movie, right? So you were in a prison jumpsuit. That's how I saw the picture. But it was
yeah,
you guys hanging out after maybe after the shot, or
yeah, yeah,
between, or something like that.
sure,
So I said, "Oh, he worked in that movie. Oh, okay." So the way that I started getting information about you was really through social media, but not like I'm stalking you, but it just happens to come through the feed. And then I
yeah,
started adding things up. I was like, okay,
right,
this
right,
guy's been
right.
out there for a long time,
It's been a minute. It's been a
specifically
minute.
in that movie, right? I mean, so tell the audience what the circumstance. We talked about it a couple
Right,
days
right.
ago,
Yeah.
how that came to be, and then the specific um, role that you played in the film, because I think it's interesting uh, how it happened, and how it how it manifested itself.
Yeah, yeah, no, it was, I mean, it was a great thrill to work on that. I mean, and that was kind of another one of my sort of early experiences in LA.
Mm,
Um, and certainly the first kind of like big movie I ever worked on, like really big movie. But um, yeah, I mean, it predates the first contact, but yeah, so it was crazy. I got this call. Saying, hey, could you, you know, they want to interview you to be, Kevin Spacey's double for this movie Seven. So I went to the interview, met the AD and New Line Cinema, LA here, and crazy, crowded, busy production office. People, lots of activity, people buzzing around. And I met him, and at the time, I've had I haven't had hair in a long time, but at the time I had hair, but just a very little hair on the sides. And in any event, so I went to the audition, and he said, "Well, look, can you?" We talked, and he asked me if I knew who David Fincher was, and this is like '95, and Fincher directed like Aliens 3, and uh, he was a huge commercial director at the time,
super successful. Super
super
successful.
successful at the time, and he had done Aliens 3, but he really, I think that really was the only movie he had done up until that point.
Mm.
But he was incredibly well known in the business. But I actually had met him because I auditioned for a Madonna video.
The what was it? The movie, the one that he directed. Did he do more than one? I think he directed geez, the one where she is it's Express Yourself. That's the one I think he did, that I remember
Right,
that he did.
right, right. Yeah, yeah. He also did. Yeah, he directed. Is Bad Girls?
Okay,
Uh,
yeah, that one, or Bad Girl,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
Right, Bad Girl. So I auditioned for the Bad Girl video.
Yeah. That's a great video.
I auditioned for him a few years earlier.
Right.
I had a really good experience. I didn't get the job.
Okay.
Which is the punchline to most of these stories about things. But I had a really good time. Like the audition was memorable, and he was super cool, and I remember the audition really well. And is there a killer in Bad Girl? Do you remember Bad Girl pretty well?
Well, I think it was. Yeah, there was, and it was well. It was a well done video. It was well lit, and I think what's his name?
Yeah, incredibly.
It was incredible because at that time that was a single that really didn't necessarily like radio friendly.
Yeah.
So the video actually made it a little bit more stronger than what it was doing, I think, in the radio market, right?
Okay.
But famous actor was there. That was what's this guy's name? Walken was in it, and that was the most memorable.
Right. Christopher Walken was there, right?
Yeah.
He's dynamite dancer.
Yeah.
Walken. In any event, I have a story about him that I could tell a little later. But anyway, so I had a good experience with Fincher on that, you know, and it was just memorable. And so I said, yeah, I just, oh my God, it's so cool. So I went and met with him. Which was epic. Just go and sit with David Fincher, and it was literally the interview, the audition, or the conversation I had with him was maybe a minute long.
Mm-hmm. So
he literally turned around. I walked in. I was standing there. He was busy at a computer. He turned and was like, "Hi, Patrick. How you doing? David, great. Listen, we're gonna go to the desert. We're gonna play Kevin, second unit. We're gonna shoot from this. This is great. Okay, cool. I'm gonna give you the video. You have to study it. I'll match all his movements. Great. Okay, cool. I'll see you in 2 days." He turned around.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty intense, but it was like.
But he somehow knew that you were the person that he needed, right?
Yeah, no. It was 100%. But it was one of those, like, it was such an intense, quick moment with someone. I don't think I'd ever had a moment with somebody that was that quite intense.
Mm-hmm.
So brief.
Yeah.
But in any event, yeah. So I got the gig. They gave me the videotape. I studied this videotape, and we went out. We went out to the desert. We went out to Lancaster for the weekend, and and so basically I was the double for Spacey, for John Doe, and they had Morgan Freeman's double and Brad Pitt's double, and I was Spacey's double. So we did all the scenes from for second unit from like the helicopter. So whenever they were shooting down from the helicopter, it was us.
Uh-huh.
And there's a bunch of shots that are intercut at the end of the movie where we are actually, they're quick cuts of us in second unit. But Spacey on the last day, he was supposed to be there to shoot, and he didn't show up.
Mm.
And they knocked on my door. And they said, "Hey, Patrick, we need you." So I was already, I was at that point, in that moment, I was like thrust into first team with the guys, with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. So I'm doing the same with them. And it was unbelievable. It was, it was just, and the thing I remember too is that everybody, and here I was like so worried about knowing the lines, right? So I had the sides. And they were down by I was kneeling down, and they were down by my knee, and I remember, being worried about dropping a line, and I remember, Morgan Freeman saying, Brad Pitt saying, like, what was the line? Like everyone was trying to figure out.
Sure. I get it.
So it kind of, it made me feel a little bit better.
Because they weren't perfect, right?
Yeah, right.
They were in the,
Pardon me?
They were like, "Hey, do you remember that line? Kind of like, help me out with this," or
right. So right. They called for a line, or what was that? You know, they called
Yeah.
like what was the line again? You know, so each of them did it, and I was like,
Mhm.
oh, okay. So, but you know, then you're thinking, well, like, you know, no one knows who I am. These guys are like, you know, these guys are like some of the biggest stars in the world. So, but in any event, I got through it, and it was amazing. So, yeah, we were out in the desert for 3 days, and you know, they gave us screen credit. You know, we got nice credit on that, and you know, Pitt was everyone. They were amazing. I mean, I learned so much about, you know, just being in the presence of David Fincher and those, you know, Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman. I learned so much. You know, I learned
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much. Um, it was unbelievable, and I also got a chance to go up in the helicopter. You
Mhm.
know, they asked me to do. You know, they asked me to be the the SWAT guy. They say, hey man, you want to go up in a helicopter? So that was exciting. But it was yeah. I mean, I can't. It's difficult to describe just how exciting and surreal it is. And you know, even like all these years later, because that was the film that really put him on the map, Fincher. And you know, he was terrific. I mean, he's a legend. I mean, talk about mastery of your craft. I mean,
Yeah, he's
I
been doing it.
remember. I mean, just he
He
just
knows what he's
140 and
doing.
135. I mean, it was just total
Yeah, he knows.
total mastery of exactly what he wanted, and
Mhm.
lenses and lighting,
Yep.
and it's almost like, you know, I'm sure you've experienced this with people you've worked with that have such a strong vision.
Sure.
Someone that has such a strong vision, they know exactly what they want, and they know exactly how to achieve it.
Mhm.
And it was amazing. You know, I used that word many times in the last 10 minutes, but it's
But
kind
you
of
so let me ask you, you played
yeah.
a SWAT guy and then you played the double for
Yeah,
Kevin
so
Spacey.
basically, I
Those
was
are two
just
different
around.
roles.
Yeah, I was, yeah. I mean, I was pretty much like Kevin's, you know, primarily Spacey's double.
Right.
But they asked me, I was there, and they said, "Well, look, you know, you have a shaved head. You have a shaved head," and John McGinley, who played
Uh-huh.
the Hawkeye, he played California in the movie. You know, he's got a shaved head, so we got to do some second unit stuff. Are you cool with being in a helicopter? I'm like, sure, well, hell yeah. So I put on the SWAT uniform and jumped in the helicopter, and like we're going right above the tension wires at like
Mhm.
100 knots and peeling off like, and that was crazy to be like, you know, like this,
Mhm.
you know, and there's nothing really between you and the ground. You know, you're
I
flying.
remember the film. I
Yeah,
even remember some of the scenes, like not vividly, but as you're describing it. Because then they had to go, like at least in the desert, they had to go and open a box. Or was that what it was? They had to
yeah,
go find some box, had to find a box. Like, what is going on with the box, right? So I don't remember. I can't even tell you what happened at the end. I just remember the desert scene. I remember the helicopter scene,
right.
right? Them
Yeah,
driving out, you know, in cars or
right,
something.
right. And that what they had done is they had shot the movie like in February, March,
Mm-hmm.
right around there, the early spring, not early spring, but you know, the late winter, and then they needed to do these pickups with the helicopter and the second unit, and they had all these second unit shots, and they had to do more principal photography. So, but Pitt was dynamite. He was a super nice guy. Morgan Freeman was wonderful, and
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman, Morgan Freeman is one of those, you know, sort of classic old school actors who actually has his own stand-in. So so yeah, it was just, you know, I have to say though, one of the great moments of my life was watching. I got to watch Morgan Freeman open the box.
Right, right, right. This is the end, right? Toward
Yeah,
the end.
and so all the scene of him opening the box they shot that day,
Uh-huh.
and I was maybe 20. You know, I was
Uh-huh.
25 feet, 30 feet away watching
Uh-huh.
him open
Uh-huh.
that box, and it was amazing because he opened the box. We did it like I think they did it like 3 or 4 times, And every time he did it, it was so chillingly real that it sent shivers down your spine. And every time he did it, it was completely different and real. So it was like magic. It was like watching.
I mean, look, but this, as you remember, he was on Electric Company for years, right? Like,
Yeah.
we watched him. It was like, who is that? Like, when they actually started when he made the jump, and he started appearing in all these great films, it was interesting how he hit, right? Whatever that means, like how right? So, in other words, I mean, I don't know him personally, of course not, right? But I had respect for him only because I saw him on television, what he was doing before, and then the roles that he was getting when we were, young adults. Right. So he was on a roll, and I still, if Shawshank Redemption comes on television now, I don't have a TV here. I don't play it that much.
Right.
I saw it on the plane, and of course, I watched the whole thing. So, and I watch it because he's in it, right? So
he's agreed.
He's amazing.
Anytime I see Shawshank, I mean, like, he's a master, and he's a very kind man. He's very incredibly warm person, and I mean, just great memories. Just 7, and David Fincher's gone on to have, God, what a career. Right?
But is he still? I mean, I'm ignorant of this. Is he still, like, some of the people that we knew, that we knew as directors? Are they still directing huge, big budget features, or has it moved on to new directors? Younger directors.
Well, I mean, he's still directing huge, the biggest movies. Yeah, Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and The Game earlier. Michael Douglas and Curious Case of Benjamin Button, The Fight Club, and Social Network.
That was the one the most recent one, I think, because it was Facebook, right? It's Facebook.
Yeah, and the girl with the dragon tattoo. I think it's.
Oh, he did that one.
Yeah, I believe he did that one. Yeah,
he did one, and I think that was another one I saw on the plane.
Dragon tattoo, sure.
I see them all on the plane.
No, he's and the Zodiac. Just classic movies, but he was fantastic, and like I said, my first meeting with him was very, very intense, but I learned so much. I just learned so much being on that set, and it was really, really exciting. Let me the understatement of the millennium.
Let me ask you about the movie. There's something on your reel, and then we'll start talking about the singing part, because I want to make sure that we cover that, and we're going long. But there's something on your reel that you play a detective. I can't remember, or some sort of dark. Well, the movie is dark. What's on the reel that I saw? I think there's one with Kevin Sorbo.
Yeah, Kevin Sorbo. Yeah, so it's Coffin.
Right.
Yeah, so I did the film about 10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago. Coffin with Kevin Sorbo and Bruce Davison. Kevin Sorbo, Hercules. Bruce Davison from X-Men. He's been in so many movies. X-Men. He was in. He's been in everything. He's one of those guys you see. You know him from a zillion TV shows and movies. But he was in The Crucible with Daniel Day-Lewis. Anyway, so that was exciting. Yeah, I played the lead in that. I played a character named Jack Sams, and my wife gets kidnapped, and she's having an affair with Hercules, Kevin Sorbo, and she ends up having she ends up getting put in a coffin, and I have 48 hours to find out where she is and pay the rent. Pay her life. So that was incredibly exciting. That was did that film with some friends of mine from actually the Star Trek days. Derek Wingo, Kip Tribble, phenomenal writer, directors, Derek and Kip. I worked with a great actor named Johnny Alonso, who played the bad guy. And Sonny Dench, who was my wife. That was exciting. That was it's like my sort of first lead in the film. That was 2010. Working with Kevin Sorbo, incredible. Bruce Davison, Academy Award nominated actor. That was an acting class in in and of itself, just to be
Yeah.
around him. So that was Coffin. It was 2010. So that we had kind of a, you know, kind of a psychological thriller, horror film, indie.
Mm-hmm.
We really kind of went, you know, it made it over to Europe. So, you know, it just got played on German TV like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So it's still circulating on TV, you know, in Europe, and we had a nice release with that. And then we did Coffin 2 7 years later.
Okay.
So that was exciting. And then I worked on a film. These are just some highlights. I worked on a film called The Lost Day with Billy Baldwin and the great Danny Trejo, Machete. So really exciting. Shot that in South Carolina with, again, Kip Tribble and Derek Wingo, and Johnny Alonso, and Billy Baldwin, who's very cool. And that was shot in South Carolina, gosh, like maybe 4 years ago now. I think 4 this fall. Yeah, so those are just a few of the things, you know.
Yeah,
But,
yeah. And with regard to the singing is now seeming, well, I saw that you have a couple of films in either pre-production or two that were, I think, closed. That you don't use the word closed. What is it? Wrapped or in the can? How do you say it? But this is the thing I'm interested in. I'm going to segue to the singing. So what I started to see was more singing via social media, and that you were cutting albums, and give the people or the people listening an idea of, you know, when this started to take off, and sort of projects that you started to create for yourself.
Well, you know, I did my first album in 2001, which was pretty much a trio record, and it was me and a trio, and it was produced by my late mentor, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Howlett Smith, who just left us in the fall. But he was my mentor for a good 20 years or more. And he produced the record, and it's pretty much a collection of the Great American Songbook, like a lot of Sinatra tunes, Tony Bennett, stuff that you've heard a lot of those legendary singers do. We had an amazing trio on that: Tamir Hendelman and on piano, and Christoph Ludi on bass, and Dean Koba on drums. Tamir Hendelman has played with Streisand and just unreal. So that was 2001, and that's When the Time Is Right. That's available on Spotify and all the platforms, Spotify and, you know, Apple Music and Amazon. So you guys can check that out. So yeah, and then I started to do more music, but I mean, I've kind of bounced back and forth for a long time. But over the last, I guess, had a busy couple of years doing, you know, some cool film projects and stuff. And I did, I'm trying to think. We started working on this latest album like in early 2018 called Sway. The new record is called Sway.
Okay.
As in
Here comes
Martin.
the promo. Sure, Sway and
shameless plug.
Of course, right?
So this is and I'm, you know, something I like an idiot, I should have it here, but anyway, go ahead.
Don't worry about it. But what we do want to hear, at least you sing. I think this is, you know, it's like equivalent with people say, hey, can you dance, right? But look, we do want to hear a couple of lines from one of the songs on the CD so people can get an idea. I'm not crazy. This guy can really sing. He can sing really well.
Here we go. I love it.
To the point where I was like, what is that? You know?
What? So anyway, were you asking me a question?
Well, what I'm saying to you is we'll make sure that people can see where they can get the album. We'll put all the information in the description box and so on. But I think that people need to hear exactly, you know, what you're able to do with your voice.
Sure. You know what we're gonna do after this? You know what we're gonna do after this?
What?
I want you to do a few kicks for us.
Hey, look, it's not in this room was full of junk.
Hey. I'm gonna sing. You're doing some kicks, buddy. Listen, man. Listen, that's how it goes,
Hey,
David.
look. What I can do, I will show something, but it's.
No, listen, no, listen.
Yeah, so.
There's a all right, so you know what we're gonna do? Right behind me is a photo of the Doors.
Uh-huh.
And man,
Uh-huh.
I feel like I drank a bottle of whiskey last night, but right above me is a photo of the Doors. They played at the Whiskey A Go-Go on May 23rd, 1966, on my birthday, a year before I was born. So on my new album, we recorded Touch Me. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, now touch me, babe. Can't you see that I am not afraid? What was that promise that you made? Why won't you tell?
Oh, jeez. Wait a minute. Okay. Look, Pat,